I'm going to tell you today about Pendleton Hall, which was originally the parish hall for the Church of the Advent. In the beginning of the 20th century, the church was running out of room for classes and for meeting rooms, and the vestry in the church decided they needed a parish hall. Luckily, in 1903, the piece of property directly north of us, which is where Pendleton Hall now stands, became available, and the church was able to buy it for a whopping $850. An architect was called. His name was A.H. Elmwood, and a new minister in the meantime had been called. His name was W.H.K. Pendleton, and everyone was getting excited about the new hall that was going to be built. The ground was broken in 1912. By 1913, the hall was finished. Pendleton had arrived in 1909, so he was able to begin using the hall in 1912. When it was finished, it was dedicated by Bishop Gary in 1913. When it was finished, it contained 21 rooms, which encompassed a library, offices, classrooms, a gym, and a kitchen in the basement. You can see if you look at it now, the property began right at the corner of Pendleton Hall. The parish hall was renamed for our minister, W.H.K. Pendleton, who served the church for 30 years, from 1909 to 1939. He was very instrumental in the upstate of South Carolina. He was the one, with other church members, he pushed to have a Boy Scout troop established, and he was the first leader for many years. He also was the person who encouraged the bishop and the diocese to split into two parts so that the upper South Carolina would be separate from the lower part of the state. He was instrumental in the purchase of Camp Canoga, which at the time was a large tract of land with a small camp on it, which later became the Canoga Convention Center. He also, with members of the Advent, helped establish the Indigent Children's Hospital in Saluda, North Carolina. Another sideline, he was instrumental in bringing Camp Wadsworth to Spartanburg in World War I, because he had been to college with his roommate in college worked for one of the people who was deciding where to put the training camps during World War I, and he was able to get it in Spartanburg. Unfortunately for Pendleton, in his first 6 months at the church, his 9-year-old son died in the rectory by unfortunately hanging himself when he was combing his hair and fell, and his collar got caught on a hook, and he hanged himself. And this large window that you can see, well, we'll see in a minute, it was dedicated to his son. The parish hall, once it was completed in 1913, has served many functions. During World War I, the gym was transformed into the tricolor tea room to entertain and support the soldiers at Camp Wadsworth. They served lunch and dinner for almost 3 years and served an amazing number of meals. During World War II, it was transformed again for the soldiers at Camp Croft. In 1953, when Satterley Hall, which, as you know, is on the other side of the church, was completed, the classrooms that had been built in Pendleton were no longer, well, actually in the parish hall, were no longer needed as much. In 1978, when the new parish hall was built below Satterley, it contained a full-size gym. So the gym in Pendleton was no longer needed, and it was converted into a chapel, which is our chapel today. In 1978, when the new parish hall was built south of Satterley Hall, the church decided to name this building, which up to now had been Parish Hall, and they named it Pendleton Hall. At that time, and since that day, the functions have been pretty similar. We have the choir practice rooms there, the Advent toners practice there. We have the chapel, which includes the daily morning prayer, the weekly Eucharist and healing services, also the Sunday chapel for children. We have the control center for all the audiovisual stuff that goes on to send out our church services. We have vestments. The vestments for the church clergy and the acolytes are in Pendleton. The vesting rooms for all the people that are involved in the church, and the flower ministry. There's also a hospitality room that is used by various people. But as you can see, over the years, Pendleton Hall has been an integral part of our church.